too much. Just going to kind of be, I hear a lot of people calling like initial, that they're initial and they're like, 30 miles away, but they're just coming in straight in on a final. And I think this will kind of alleviate a lot of that. So, and a lot of what F2 is going to be today is going to be this. So we'll start here. Okay, so right now, everyone that's cleared to solo. Okay, you guys are doing straight ins, right? So you guys, can you guys see my cursor? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you guys are joining pretty much straight into the final, right? This line, this final line, goes out from the runway heading, the reciprocal, into infinity, right? So if you're on 100 miles, but you're lined up with the runway, technically you're on a 100-mile final. So when you guys are coming straight in right now, your calls will sound something like Katasi traffic, Domino 1, single F-16, 30-mile final, runway 07. And what that indicates to everyone is that there's a jet coming in 30 miles out, and he's going straight to the runway. You can say coming straight in, and then, if you want to change it up at 15 miles, but you will never be wrong if you're going straight to the runway, and that is your call that you're on final. Just give a distance, because a 5-mile final and a 30-mile final are a lot different. Someone that's on a 5-mile final, a jet's departing might not be able to get out in time. But if you're 30 miles away, they will absolutely be able to get out before you get there. So that's kind of the basics of that. For the Air Force, and I think I have a couple Navy guys in here too, and former guys as well. So while in the civilian world, we fly rectangular patterns, in the military, you do not. It's all rounded. Now, these legs still exist, but generally they're emitted. So generally there's an upwind, a downwind, and then this base leg is kind of emitted, and it's just called the perch. This angle right here is called the perch. Basically, when you're about to pitch in, because in the military, you guys will notice we do not square anything, right? We go right from the downwind and we just turn straight into the final. Whereas in civilian world, you would level out and then turn in to final. You're not going to be wrong if you call base leg. I know we got a couple guys that are trying for in real life flight training. I get that all the time as well in the civilian world of things. But technically, there is no base leg. So that is that. So for right now, like I said, you guys are coming in on the final. So the comm will be whatever Katasi traffic, Domino 1, single F-16, 30-mile final, runway 7. Katasi traffic. This is not going to be so important right now, but when we get to Nellis, this is kind of how traffic patterns work. I know most of your IPs have been telling you, hey, the traffic pattern is always usually away from the ramp at Katasi, so that would be right, because there's really no ramp on the right-hand side. It's just a taxiway, so everything is going to be right turns. If there were 2 large ramps on either side of the runway, we would default to left. Left is standard. If you can see, both of these diagrams are in the left, because left in the aviation world is standard. But Katasi, right traffic. There's actually not too many bases that I guess if we were lining in 2-5, then it would be left, but anyways, I digress. So that's the traffic pattern. Like I said, it's rounded on both sides. There's really no crosswind leg on the upwind side of things. There's really no base leg. So for the Air Force purposes, it's going to be upwind. You could still call this the crosswind. Downwind leg. So that is the reciprocal going the opposite direction of the runway. At pattern altitude, so 1,500 feet AGL. And then perch here. And then there is no base, and you should go straight into the final. For state purposes, the mandatory calls in the traffic pattern will just be the perch, or the downwind leg, or the final, if you're coming in those ways, if that makes any sense. So for my F1 guys right now that are cleared to solo, you guys are coming straight in the final, so you have to be calling this final, right? When you switch on to button 1, that's what you should be calling, that you're on a 3-0 mile final. When we start getting into the night stuff, we're going to be doing these type of entries. This is a 45-degree entry right here with the 1. So you're going to be joining the downwind to land. So that'll be how you'll say it. You'll say that you're whatever, 30 miles to the north, entering the 45 left downwind for 2.5 or whatever it might be. But for right now, daytime, don't even worry about that. We'll get your IPs will brief you guys on that better once we get to the nighttime. So right now, you just need to worry about final. For the guys that are going to do F2 today, you do not need to make a downwind call. When you do your initial, you're going to do your initial, brake, go into your next call after the brake is going to be the perch call. For the perch, you guys are going to give your call sign. You can say what you want, or not say what you want, say what you are. So you can say Katasi Traffic, Domino 1, single F16, perch. If you'd like, you can just say Domino 1. I'll let Loco decide if he wants to elevate that to indicating what you are. But you also should give your gear indication here. You guys should be dirty here. So they should be down. If they're not down, they should be at least in transit. So that call will sound like Katasi Traffic, Domino 1, single F16, perch, 3 down and locked, runway 25. Or I'm sorry, runway 7. Katasi Traffic. That's going to tell everyone what you're planning on doing. Okay, he's doing some sort of landing and where he's at. Okay, I know he's base to final, so I can't leave before he gets here. You should be making this call right before you make this turn. So it's going to be basically once the numbers are at your off your wingtip on your missile rail. That's when you guys should be pitching in when you're at 45 degrees offset from the runway. Again, Loco's going to explain more of this to you guys when he demonstrates, but once you're about here is when you should be making that call. The reason for these calls is because there is no ATC, right? There could be. I could do it, but I don't want to. And it's basically see and be seen. So you got to make sure you're making yourself seen for everyone else. That's pretty much, that's the last call you're going to make for the overhead. The only other call you will make is if you're touching down, and let's just say it's going to be a touch and go, which is probably what Loco is going to have you guys do today, or a low approach, or a stop and go, or obviously if you're getting off the runway. But your next call will be whatever it is you're doing, very simply. So let's say you come on perch, 3 down and locked, then you guys touch down, you do your touch and go, and you start going out, and you're going back out to initial. You could just simply say Katasi Traffic, Domino 1, on the go, runway 07, Katasi. Again, the shorter and simpler the thing is, everyone's going to know where you are better. Because you guys will see tonight, as you guys have 6 jets in the air, it's just going to be chaos. Because a lot of you guys are going to be pushing to think, and you're just going to be clogging up airtime while you got a guy that's, coming up on a 6-mile initial, hauling ass at 350 knots. That 5-mile initial to him is going to be less than 30 seconds. He's going to be at the approach end of the runway. So you got to get these calls out quick. Does anyone have any questions on the traffic pattern and kind of your calls you need to make while you're in the pattern? I know that was a lot. No?
So I have a question.
Go ahead, William.
So like if on a runway, if I do a touch and go, someone's on a runway. So how do I have to make any calls?
So that kind of takes me to my next point about kind of how CTAF works. Someone shouldn't be on the runway. Maybe if you were a flight, then it would be. And as IPs, what they should be doing, and I know if you guys flew with me, I know for sure I told you guys to do it. I said, hey, when I come in, I'm going to land. You're going to do a low approach. There's no reason to have a jet accelerating on the same runway that another jet is decelerating. So if someone's on the runway, unfortunately, if they're not part of your flight and they're slowing down, and let's say they're halfway or they're in some sort of proximity to where you don't think you're going to be able to stop, or let's say be at a reasonable speed before you were to catch them, go around. I know it sucks. It's another 2 minutes. But in order to alleviate that, I'll get to that in the comms side of things, basically coming into the airport environment. But basically, CTAF is nothing more than conversations between pilots and self-reporting. That's all it is. So when someone says something, if someone doesn't know, like for instance, if Joe Blow, I'm just gonna, who's someone here that I can pick on? Okay, if Fig Jam comes up here and he for some reason is doing his 45 check and hasn't been listening, right? And he didn't hear, yeah, and he didn't exactly right now he's not listening. So he didn't hear that William called perch, gear down, full stop, runway 7. And then he says Katasi traffic, whatever, Dragon 1, single A10 departing runway 07 straight out. Katasi. Well, you need to make another call quickly and basically say that he's got a jet coming up on final, because clearly he didn't check. And that's okay. That's part of CTAF. But part of it is every time there's a traffic call out, there's an answer, usually, because the person that's just now checking in, who flew today with Loco? Was that Prophet? He's here. Okay. So when Loco and when Shades and I were coming in today, and Alex also, I think, was flying today too, we were in front of Loco. Loco was behind us. Alex was behind Loco's flight, right? So we had 5 jets in the air, 3 different flights. When Loco checked on, I just very simply told him, hey, you've got another set of jets 10 miles ahead of you, which was us. Okay? It's just deconfliction to where, yes, I know he has an HSD, but just so he knows that there's someone in front of him. You can't just go cutting people off. Doesn't have to be this, I think people get hung up on the phraseology. The great thing about flying is ATC has to have really good phraseology. Pilots can just say whatever the fuck they want, because pilots have very small brains and they can't take in both flying the jet and doing good phraseology. So just, if you don't know the words, just plain English it. William, I know English isn't your first language, but your English is better than my Vietnamese, so I think you can do it.
Yeah, thank you.
So I know that doesn't really answer your question. I think the comms thing will more. But as far as the traffic pattern stuff, do I have an overhead one? Here we go. So these are the points of an overhead, kind of what I was talking about. And this is actually what a traffic pattern looks like in the military. See how there's no square, it's just rounds. So these are kind of the points you're gonna call it. This X, that's the perch. And this X is when you're lined up on the final. So like I said, any questions, at least on the basic traffic pattern stuff? I think most people know kind of how that works.
In the event of a go around, do you follow the traffic pattern in the same direction, or do you brake in a different direction?
So today, Loco is going to have you guys just break out and go straight back to the initial. That's just for repetition. In the event that you're in a flight together, right? Say you and I go up for an F2, whatever, or we just go up for a local area orientation flight or something, whatever. We come back in, and you fudge up your perch turn, and you overshoot, and you have to go around. You can just stay in the pattern. Okay, so you can, if it's a right pattern or left pattern, whatever one it is, you can just stay in it. Just climb back up to pattern altitude, get back to, for the Viper guys, about 220 knots ish, and just go down the downwind and reconfig and no harm, no foul. For today, you guys, if you go around, you're probably just going to go back out to the initial point. Does that sound good?
Yep, thank you.
No problem. I'm dying. Rona. Before I come off this thing, so this is kind of one of my big pet peeves. I was telling you guys, like these are the components of a traffic pattern, right? And that's all these are. Notice there is no initial. There is no initial here, right? Initial is only this point. It is only a point. They're going to say FAA says 3 to 5 miles. I'll say anywhere within 10 miles when you're going to start your overhead in the state. Okay, so 10 miles or more. Oh, I'm sorry, or less. Within 3. Okay, so let's just say 3 is the minimum. That is the only time you guys should be saying initial. Because that indicates to all the other pilots that you are doing the overhead. Because there is no initial for the traffic pattern, right? This is just for the overhead. So, for this call, very simple. Katasi traffic, Domino 1, single F-16, 10 mile initial, runway 7. Katasi traffic. You do not need to say right overhead brake. You can. I'm not saying you can't. But you don't need to say that because we have already established that right is the normal at Katasi. If you're going to do something abnormal, then that's when you'd want to say it. But it is understood that the right pattern at Katasi is the standard one. So when you say you're at initial, a 10 mile initial, that tells all the other pilots there's a jet coming in for the overhead, right turns 10 miles out, and he's on his initial point. Initial, like I said, is at 3 to 10 miles out, on speed, on altitude. So for a Katasi, it's 1,700 feet MSL, which is 1,500 feet AGL, and roughly 10-ish miles. There, I know there's a little river out there that we do, and what's that, like 6 or 7 miles out there? I don't know. Mouse will probably know, or Loco will know.
7.
Yeah, whatever it might be. He might have you guys go out there. You can call that point as well. It doesn't have to be the initial point that's on the knee boards. Just when you're on speed, on altitude, lined up with the runway. Okay? You're going to go down, and I'm not going to get too much into the specifics of how much G and everything like that. I'm just right now getting into the point of what makes an overhead and the calls you got to make. You're making your initial call, okay? You're going down, okay? For you guys today, when you are over the touchdown zone, so where those 1,000-foot markers, so just beyond the runway numbers, that's where you guys should be braking. Okay, you're going to be making right turns, though, so, flip this around. Before you do that, I would say pretty much once the runway goes underneath the nose of the jet, you're going to say Katasi traffic, Domino 1, brake, runway 07. Now you can say right brake if you want, right brake, runway 07. Again, it's understood that it's right because it's Katasi, 17. And then you're going to do your brake at the prescribed point. Like I said, about a third down the runway. Because you want to, because after this point, you're not going to talk until you get this perch call. Like I said, the whole point of the CTAF is to build the picture for everyone else. So if you make a 10-mile call, okay, and then don't talk until you're at the perch, there's a lot of stuff happening between that and that. So people need to know about it. So you're going to make your brake call, put the G's on the jet, get it slowed, get your on speed point, get the gear out, get the boards out. Your next call, Katasi traffic, Domino 1, perch, gear down, runway 7, Katasi. And then you're going to do your thing, you're going to overshoot, you're going to go around, Loco's going to yell at you, Mouse is going to yell at you, and you're going to do it all over again. But that's it. Like I said, the only other call will be once you're going again on the runway. And that sounds kind of like the departure one, which I'm sure everyone has heard, but it's just on the go. Any questions on what makes an overhead? And any clarity I need to make where this is the only time initial is anything? No? Alright. these are maybe Loco want to use this for the F-16s today. This is kind of the overhead stuff. We won't do the SFO tonight. Don't worry about instrument stuff. All right. Going to go to back to
So
this.
I do have a
Go ahead.
question.
Send it.
So in Nellis, when we get to workups, is the Navy still going to use the beam call?
I think we'll leave that up to CAG, to Bowser. It's my understanding, no. However, the beam call is just the perch. I do know that they will not be descending in their break.
Right.
So theoretically, I guess it's technically the perch, but they're just going to call it a beam call.
Okay. Just guys got to be aware of that when we get to workups.
Yeah.
You'll hear
Especially the
perch
16
and a
guys,
beam.
you guys will all be on the left, so you'll be hearing that. Yeah, perch, a beam. You might hear the Navy say a beam. That's just their dumb way of saying that they're next to the numbers. It all means the same thing. And once you guys get to Nellis, they'll be at the same altitude, so you really won't matter too much. It'll just be a terminology thing. Let's see here. Kind of with the comms stuff. Again, you guys are all through F1, so I know you know a lot of this. Pry should always be on the UHF. Don't have to really worry about that. Like I was telling you guys, those radios, the UHF stuff is extremely right now. If you think it's busy, you don't even know half of it. When we start getting to ops and you guys checking in on button 16 and there's a billion people in there missing their push times and magnuming off stuff and slap shotting this, that, and the other. Radio time is gold. So do not make it a push to think. It's a push to talk button. Know what you're going to say. Press the button. Say it. Right now, I could have sworn SRS had like a thing where you knew you were casting over somebody, but over the last couple updates, now it's gone. So if you talked over someone, they don't know and you don't know, which kind of sucks.
Winslow, just a quick correction. It's simplex, not duplex.
Huh?
The radios function as simplex in SRS.
Yes, I'm saying they used to not. You used to know when someone else was transmitting. At least I thought you did. But like in real life, if someone's talking and you try to talk, you get squelch and this, that, and the other. And then if ATC talks, it blankets out to everyone because nothing that the pilots have to say is that important. But thank you, whoever. I think that was onboard oxygen system.
Yeah.
God, I can't wait till that name gets changed. Yeah, so SRS doesn't have squelch or anything like that, so you won't know if you talked over someone. So when you change to and I'm sure the IPs have been showing you guys this, when you change to the button of whatever it's going to be on UHF, Pry, you listen first. You tune in, listen, then talk. Talkovers are going to happen. It's just the way it goes. But if you listen first, then talk, you'll be better. That's all you guys really need to know from this slide. Like I was saying, basic CTAF stuff is very easy. Who you are, what you are, and where you're going or what you're doing. You don't need to think anything of it. You guys know the components of a traffic pattern. Now you know the components of the overhead. So just report those. That's all you got to do. Katasa, what's this example? Katasa traffic Domino 1, flight 2 F-16s, 20 you don't have to say nautical miles, it's implied, 20 miles west of initial to runway 8, full stop. That should say 7, because they don't have an 8. But, so this is very clear and concise. They know where it's going, so it's going to Katasi, who it is, it's Domino. There are 2 F-16s, where they are, they're 20 miles west of the initial, so we all roughly know where that is. So they're, just feet dry now, right? And they're coming into 7, and they're doing a full stop. Don't worry about combat comms. So I wanted to go to this sample script because I think a lot of you guys can't see this yet, right? They don't have SOP channel yet, right? No, I don't think so. This is the ATC SOP, but it has a good sample CTAF script.
Can you zoom in on that?
Yes, I can. Enhance. Need more?
Increase the polarity.
Enhance. Better?
Good.
So, like I said, I haven't been on the. This is about the same. These are the knee boards for you guys, for the whatever the trainee stuff. Kind of gives you very basic what it is, but a lot of it's Nellis oriented. So, for taxiing out, we don't care how you're getting there. I don't care if you're going Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, partially because the knee boards are totally different than what the airport is actually saying. You know, what the signage is on the airport. So, don't have to tell me where you're coming from. You have to tell me if you're crossing a runway. I'd like to know that. But I don't care that you're coming from the ramp, you're taking Bravo, Charlie, and you're coming out of spot 4. I don't care. And nobody cares. Just think about, as a pilot, do you care where this guy's taxiing from? No, you care if he's crossing a runway, but that's about it. You can use your eyeballs and see, oh, this guy's going to be an issue. I'll wait for him. So I know you guys have all been hearing the traffic calls right now for the taxi. Very simple. Katasa traffic, Domino 1, single S16, taxi runway 07. You can tell them which way you want to go. You're going to tell them that anyways when you depart. But I'll leave that up to you guys. I don't think that's too much extra verbiage. Taxing, that's very easy, right? You don't have to say you're doing the 45 check. It's already understood. We all know that. When you do your 45 check, after you're done, right, and you're ready to leave, welcome back, and you're ready to leave, that's when you make your departure call. Okay? As good, smart pilots, you should be checking the traffic pattern if you can see it. So it's easy on Katasi because you're 45, you're pretty much looking at the traffic pattern, right? So check the traffic pattern, check the perch, check the base, check the final. Make sure you don't see any landing lights, you don't see any airplanes, nothing. All right? Then you're going to make your call. Again, who you are, what you're doing. Katasi traffic, Domino 1, single F-16, departing runway 07, straight out to the east, or whatever direction you're going to go, north, south, east, west. Katasi traffic. That is very, very simple. And then you guys depart, clean the jet up, go outbound. We don't really have a prescribed distance. I would say 5 miles or more. Once you're 5 miles away in the A10, I know that's going to take a little bit, but for the F-16s, it doesn't take long. You just make your last call, and it's very simple. You've already said the direction you're going, so you can just say, Katasi traffic, Domino 1, clear to the east, last call. And then they know that you're gone. You're not coming back until you land. Then you guys go to button 6 and you know how that works. At least I hope you guys know how that works. I know there was a live GCI today. There won't always be. GCI is different than ATC. I think I'm the only ATC guy. He can tell you where to go and what to do. Basically, at any point, GCI can only do it kind of in the combat environment. Any questions on the taxi and departure stuff? Like I said, I think this is your guys' knee boards. A lot of it is for Nellis, Dream 6, all this crap, which we don't even really do anymore. So just keep that in mind. Don't study this. Just know the core principles of why we do something. Landing. Not going to do hassle. Not going to do Nellis. So for landing, it's the same thing. for especially for today for F, what is it, 3, 2, something like that, 2A. Katasi traffic, Domino 1, single F-16, 8 mile initial, runway 07, Katasi traffic. That tells everybody everything they need to know. They know where initial is, they know what initial is for, and they know what altitude initial's at, so they don't even have to extrapolate where your altitude is. You know, they know that's 1700 and how fast that'll be. That one's pretty simple. If you're, let's say, you know, we get with the check-in within 30 miles, right? You're coming in, just give a basic position report, okay? You guys know how to use the steer points, so you should be on steer point 1, right? Or if you're using the TAC-in, you can use the TAC-in, 44 or X-ray, I think. Katasi traffic, Dragon, or I'm sorry, damn, keep doing this A10 crap. Katasi traffic, Domino 1, single F-16, 30 miles to the west, inbound, runway 07, Katasi. You could say you're doing the right overhead, but if you just say you're inbound, we'll all know whatever your next one is. If it's a final, okay, we know you're going straight in. If you're reporting initial, okay, we know now you're doing the overhead. Now, the key with these things, okay? So let's say I'm flying and I'm just going to pick someone, Morg is flying, okay? Morg checks in and says he's 25 miles, right? He checks in at 25 miles. A minute later, I check in, okay? And I say I'm 30 miles. I have no idea Morg's there, right? Let's just say I'm clueless on how the HSD works and I can't build the mental picture, okay? It should be up to Morg to remember and to realize, hey, this guy just checked in. Let me make another position report. So now he knows where I'm at. Okay, you got to build the picture for each other. A10s, they have a super sweet high-speed helmet, but they don't know where the other jets are at the moment. F-16s, the HSD is extremely delayed, and I wouldn't even consider it semi-reliable. So building the picture for each other is going to be your best bet. Now, whether he has to answer immediately, or if you want to wait, hey, I'm 3 miles away from 20 miles, I'll just make a 20-mile call. That's fine. As long as you just make another call. It shouldn't be the 30-mile check-in call, and then if 3 people check in, your next call shouldn't be that you're, you know, on a 6-mile initial, because that's 24 miles of dead space that no one knows where anyone is. Same goes for if you make a 30-mile call and then you hear somebody is taxiing out. I'd wait a couple minutes, couple seconds, make another call. Just so that way they know, hey, someone's coming in. When I get to do my 45 checks, I might want to be looking. You'll know, or you'll get the feel of basically how often you should be doing them. I'm not saying every time somebody checks in, you need to be re-answering them with a position report, but if you know it's could be an issue, make the call. There's such thing as too much information. Well, in this instance, there's no such thing as too much information. So we've made our initial call that we're 30 miles to the west, okay? And then our next call would be that we're initial, which is on speed, on altitude. Let's say, like I said, 3 to 10 miles on the runway heading. You're going to make that initial call, which I've already went over. Then you're going to make your brake call. Same thing. Katasi traffic, Domino 1, single F-16, right brake, runway 07, Katasi. You could just say brake, you could say right brake. I don't care. Just tell them what you're doing, so that way people know where to look. This is all ATC crap, so don't worry about that. But I know it was a lot, and I've been talking for 37 minutes now, but I promise you it's not nearly as much as you guys think. What what questions, what examples, what can I give you guys to make it easier for you? I know I just rambled on. I like to hear myself talk.
I like to hear you talk.
Well, it's funny. Did you guys hear my wife in the background says I hate it?
Is there
Hi,
is there a way
I
to
just
check? Oh, sorry. Is there a way to check like what the active runway is?
So, that is a great question, Prophet. You know what? 2 brownie points for you. Those,
I'll take
those convert to Shroot bucks. So, here's the thing with CTAF, okay? And people are going to get their panties up in a bunch when you tell them this. You're landing on whatever. We take off on 7 at Katasi just because it is more aligned with the wind, but in a CTAF world, there is no such thing as active runway. It's whatever people want. That's just the way, at least in the U.S., that's how the federal regulations are. It's just the way it goes. It's not until you get to a controlled airport. Generally speaking, we will always use the runway aligned most with the wind. There's a couple caveats to that. But the first thing I'll say is the wind, how it is reported in DCS, is extremely stupid. Extremely, extremely stupid. Worm and I put this up in the ops planning thing the other day, or the instructor thing, or whatever. Basically, how wind is normally read is where it's coming from at the speed, right? So if it's coming from the northeast, right, it would be, let's just say 070 at 6 knots, or whatever it might be. In DCS, it gives you the start and the end like direction, if that makes any sense. For Katasi, I don't know if you guys have noticed. Has anyone noticed the windsock that's right in front of your face when you guys go about to depart? Because there's a windsock that's like right in front of you. That's going to be your best bet for departing, at least at Katasi, is looking for a windsock. When we get to Nellis, it's going to be easy. It's always the 3s. We're always departing and arriving in the 3s. When we get to deployment, it's a lot more fluid because it depends. When we were at Ramat David, the A-10s were based at one part of the base and the 16s were based at the other part, and we were departing on 2 different runways. They intersected, and we just, sorted out, and we didn't have any mid-airs. And then on top of that, the AI cap would depart the opposite direction the F-16s took off. Nothing you can do about that. They're just going to do whatever they want. But to answer your question, no. There's no real way to know which one's active, just to know basically the flow of the airport. At Katasi, pretty much at every airport in wherever we're at, I almost said Sharna Roos, like, what's that, Arma. But in the Black Sea map, we're basically, the flow is east, when the wind comes from the east. So we're Batumi, they're landing, coming from the ocean. What's the base to our northwest? Sanaki is 9. It's the one runway we're arriving. So all the wind is coming from the east in that map. It will change pretty frequently, but only when we switch places, if that makes sense. So like, for instance, when we come back here, we'll be at COM2X or red flag, whatever you want to call it. The carrier needs the wind to be in a specific way, so it'll just stay whatever that way is. So if it's coming from the north, it's always going to be coming from the north. So if that answers your question, it's when you guys get your section quals, you'll see you can brief whatever the hell you want. There's nothing stopping anyone right now from departing 2-5 at Katasi. No, SOP we have or anything like that. You would just be getting in the way of everything. But there's nothing that says you can't. You'll land with a tailwind, and I know seeing some of you guys land and you're struggling with the wind. You're only going to struggle more when you get the wind going against you. But no, unless there's a controller on, there's really no way to know the exact active.
All right, thanks.
No problem. I know that didn't answer anything you were saying, but
No, I think it did. It just Do what you want.
As
long
far
as
as
it's good.
our server goes, though, at Kutaisi, it's just always 07.
Got it.
There's, given that this is training and that's all we're doing here, and there's a lot of guys who are going to be flying and a lot of different skills and patterns and whatnot, we're just going to always keep it 07.
And it flows better that way, because we've already got the knee boards that way. But like I said, when we get to deployment, it's way different. There's times at Intralic where we depart 2-3 and arrive 5, or vice versa. It didn't matter. It would also be mission dependent. And we have a document that I can kind of show you guys. Not that. This thing. And Loco and I are working on it right now, but it says, the first thing it says is, all runways are considered active unless operationally advantageous, use the runway most aligned with the wind. And that asterisk means unless assigned by ATC is different. ATC can tell you whichever way they want you to go. So, yeah, the runway stuff, like I said, I know that's weird to see, TAF, especially if you watch stuff online. And that's part of the reason why the military really, in real life, doesn't fly to uncontrolled fields. It's just a lawless land, and they can't figure that out. The Air Force and the Navy thinks they don't have a lot of regs, but they do. They have less than the Navy or the Air Force does. Only Army helicopters go to uncontrolled fields, really, and that's just because the Army's dumb. Any other questions? Like I said, what else can I help you guys with? If you guys ever see me in a thing or whatever, and you want to ping me and say, "Hey, can you go over some scripts with me?" I'll be happy to do that.
I was hoping to get some information about calls for the tanker.
Tanker calls? Okay. Well, you're the wrong rank, but it should be pretty simple for you guys. So at some point, button 6, you're gonna check out of there, right? So whatever. I don't even know what the 106's call sign is, but whatever it is, checking out of button 6 or pry 6, whatever you guys call it. You're gonna have your air-to-air TACAN on, right? And you're gonna probably have your high-speed radar locked up onto them. So you have the distance, right? I'm not sure how the Navy does it, but we brief 1,000 feet below whatever the tanker's altitude is. So for us, I think it's 22,000 is what the tanker's always at for the F-16s, 15,000 for the A-10s. So you're at 14,000 for the A-10 for the rejoin, and 21,000 for the F-16. And just stare at that TACAN, right? Again, I'm only speaking for the 16 and the A-10 because I'm not sure how it works in the F-18 or the 14. But I would imagine when you're on air-to-air TACAN with them, it gives you a bearing. It gives you a bearing and distance, correct?
Yeah, it does.
So just look at the reciprocal of whatever that. So if it's pointing to the north, you know you're coming from the south, right? If the tanker's to your north, you're coming from the south. So very simply, I'm going to use ARCO because we don't use Texaco, but ARCO, Domino 1, flight of 2 F-16s, checking into your airspace, 30 miles to the south, Angels 2-1 for the rejoin. Low state, and then you're going to state who's the lowest in the flight. With 2, you can lead just usually gives his own because you guys are about the same, unless you're really bad at formation flying. Shade. But so you'll just say your low state 10.0, low state 5, whatever it is. The reason you do that is if there's a flight that's in front of you, just like how CTAF works in the airport arrival area, if there's a flight in front of you that has twice the amount of gas you do, and you just said, hey, we're at 1.3, they'll know, hey, we'll just sit at observation and wait for these guys to get some gas so they don't flame out. And that's very simply just a conversation of the flight leads. Hey, can I get gas first? Sure. And on the Navy side, you guys have two hoses. But in the Air Force, we don't. So that comes into more handy with that type of stuff.
Got it.
And then the exit is just, you can just, when you're leaving, generally, anything can be done with a proper brief, but generally, we exit out the bottom and off the turn. So not on the inside of the turn, on the outside of the turn, if that makes sense. So if the tanker turns left, you just go straight or to the right. You just say whichever way you're exiting.
Got it. So really, the only call is kind of the initial.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
intent call?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You don't need to call pre-contact or whatever. Go ahead, Loco.
Oh, I didn't say anything. I would say though for the Air Force guys, just because we might have a lot of guys there at the tanker. The one thing I do want us to do is say, like your name moving to pre-contact, and then your name moving to observation or reform. So
The name
like
or the
domino
call sign?
Well,
Oh,
call sign.
okay.
So like domino like 1-1 moving to pre-contact, domino 1-1 moving to reform area, that sort of thing. I would want that just because we've only got one tanker, at least right now for the Air Force, for the F-16s. There's a lot of us, so presumably we'll have a lot of flights there. I want to make sure that, everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm good with that. So that's very, very simple. Also, leads should be clearing those guys onto the boom and off the boom. So that way you're not running into each other. But any other questions, comments, concerns, complaints? You're not allowed to complain, bitch. You stay back there. My wife. No? Everyone's gonna nail this? It's gonna be perfect? Shit. It's the
You said
best
you were
class ever,
doing-
bro.
You said you were doing ATC tonight, right, Wednesday?
No. I'm just gonna watch.
Oh,
I'm like 2 drinks deep now.
perfect.
My wife got waxed last night, so I got a nice little date with that tonight. So
What the hell?
I'm just gonna be watching.
Coming way out of left field.
That
really.
No such thing as too much information, right?
Hey, you guys better get used to it. It's just
Don't
how I
worry,
am.
my girl's out of town. I feel the same way. I got a special date with myself tonight.
We've not
before-
actually confirmed Winslow's really married.
Hey, they don't believe you're real. Are you real?
Are you talking to your hand right now?
I mean, I've met her. She's scary.
Before,
Winslow, I feel violated.
what's up, buddy?
I feel violated.
You should. Before I forget,
Question.
go ahead.
Actually,
Send.
can I just like sit in spectator and listen to like calls?
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm not sure how like the
Well-
SRS works, but
Go
We'll
ahead.
have to start up a jet
No.
and tune in the trough.
No, you'd have to start into a jet because we have limited spectator slots. Actually, there's an observer slot, a JTAC slot, and a tactical commander slot, and you guys aren't allowed in any of those. So you'd have to slot into a jet to listen in on comms.
okay.
But if you wanted to do
and-
that, you could.
Yeah, you
mean-
could. Just, if someone is actually trying to fly and there's guys going up, you would need to get out.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, and for those guys that have the advanced TAC view, that thing is a game changer. To get logged in, I know it's mainly IPs, but trying to think of a way you guys could listen. I mean, if you wanted, does Live ATC do CTAF? Maybe it does. The caveat to all this, like all this stuff, is when there's a controller on. When there's a controller on, disregard all of it. Because the controller's going to tell you when they want to talk to you and what to say next. You'll give like a report that you're coming in, and then they'll tell you when they want to talk to you again, and then they'll clear you to land, and they'll tell you to taxi to parking, and they'll tell you don't talk to me again. But we'll get more into that once you guys are well versed in the jet.